Things are always changing. Each new Smash Bros. Title puts emphasis on something different. Characters and franchises fade from the spotlight, passing the torch onto new rising stars, and the roster changes to match. Not to declare who does or doesn't matter like some fans think, but as a natural extension of this cycle. Since Smash became a thing, we've seen series like Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem rise to prominence, others like Star Fox fade away for a while, and some rise to become focal points of their entire genre, like Xenoblade. But few of Nintendo's newest stars have risen as dramatically as Splatoon. From humble beginnings on the floundering Wii U, it still started strong enough to get an early sequel on the Switch, where the series took off like a salmon up a waterfall. With how big Splatoon has become, especially with its third entry making massive waves across the gaming world, is anyone surprised that attention is carried over into Smash speculation? This is Challenger Approaching, where we take a character who isn't playable in Smash yet and go deep into detail on what they could be like if they got in for real. Our challenger this time is a character who will definitely be present in the next game, whenever that happens. But the question then is, what form might they take? And for that, I think I have an interesting proposal. Octoling! The Octolings are denizens of the world of Splatoon and counterparts to the Inklings, able to shift from humanoid form to octopus form, change colors at will, and weaponize their own ink. They're a reflection in every way but their species, which caused hostility in the past. 100 years before the events of the first game, rising sea levels forced Inkling and Octoling armies into a grand conflict over limited living space known as the Great Turf War. When the Inklings proved victorious, the Octolings were forced underground, surviving in ramshackle shelter domes under the rulership of the Octarian regime. With resources scarce, they relied on occasional nighttime raids to steal the Inklings' power sources to keep their society afloat. All while the Octarian leadership ruled their people with an iron fist, pressing their citizens into military training at a young age and forcing their compliance by manipulating their minds with a strange type of music. That is, until a certain group of brave Inklings on a quest to save Inkopolis' great Zapfish defeated their current ruler, one DJ Octavio, in combat, and in the process exposed the Octarians to a long-forgotten tune. The Calamari Incantation, an arrangement of a song said to be etched into the very being of Inklings and Octolings, snapped many of the battle's Octarian observers out of their mind control. No longer conditioned to accept the way things were, they slowly left their underground domes behind, migrating to the surface, which now had room for them thanks to technological advancements, in search of better lives. Fast forward 7 years, and Inklings and Octolings are now two parts of the multicultural melting pot that is the Splatlands near Inkopolis, settling their differences in competition where all that's on the line is bragging rights. Yeah, a lot of lore buried behind these cartoony-looking characters, huh? So, why'd I spend a whole section setting up backstory? It's because this Challenger's home series has kind of become a big deal. A very big deal. Let's put it this way. With just 3 games, Splatoon has already become one of Nintendo's biggest franchises, rubbing shoulders with series like Kirby and Donkey Kong, and not far off from the Big N's Big 3. But it might well be one of their flagship IPs in Japan, where not only has there been a boom in merchandise, Splatoon 3 had the biggest opening weekend of any video game, ever. And while the series is present in Smash already, there's plenty of room for more, especially since Ultimate stuck almost completely to Splatoon 1, source material that isn't so fresh anymore. Sure, they could update the current Inkling moveset and call it a day, but where's the fun in doing just that? Because let's be honest, there's a very good chance these characters will be playable in the next Smash game somehow. The question is what form they'll take, a question with multiple answers. They could be an extra set of alts for Inkling, valid since they have the same base abilities, but boring. They could be an Inkling Echo Fighter, wielding a mostly similar moveset with differences to their specials, like using a Carbon or Dynamo roller for their side special with the stat differences to match. But there's a third option, arguably the most interesting. A mostly unique moveset that pulls from Splatoon's newer content and uses weapon types the Inkling moveset doesn't. 3 potential paths to take. Let's see where the third one goes, because Splatoon has so much more to offer than what you already know. So let's take that path. Onward to the surface. What would Octoling be like in Smash? For their basic appearance, we can kickstart the new stuff by giving them designs based entirely around Splatoon 2 and 3. They were first playable in 2, and 3 is the newest game on the block, so why not? For their default designs, I chose this Octoling girl from the Octo expansion promo art, who might or might not be Agent 8 after the events of the DLC, and the main Octoling boy from Splatoon 3's box art. We can also make their personalities stand out from the Inklings by using just the right amount of lore. By interpreting these guys as Octarian expats who are still getting used to life on the surface, we can justify different behavioral quirks. We'll get to the details later, but for now, imagine them taking combat more seriously than their squid counterparts. The military training drilled into them before they defected has them conditioned to think of turf wars as a life or splat affair, and they're still getting used to it being a team sport. This will lead to further changes in later sections. For alternate costumes, we need to mind something important. Octoling's palettes must have different ink colors than Inklings. Since both characters apply ink to enemies and stage surfaces, their color choices cannot overlap, so everyone playing or watching can tell whose ink is whose. The good news is, we have a good start already. Our female Octolings Dark Fuchsia and male Octolings Indigo are already two colors the Inkling alts aren't using. Options for the other palettes include reddish orange, forest green, ice blue, lavender, mustard yellow, and silver. But color alone doesn't make a fresh fit. Fashion's a big deal in the Splatlands, so like with Inkling, each Octoling alt will come with their own drip. The defaults will have the outfits as shown in the key art, but for the others, honestly, take your pick. There are so many clothing options in Splatoon 3 that I can't narrow it down. Could definitely see one alt getting Agent 8's outfit from Octo expansion though. Each alt could even come with their own hairstyles. Tentacle styles? And wouldn't you know it, Splatoon 3 has exactly 8 styles available for Octolings as of right now. Cross your fingers and hope your favorite color gets the afro. On to attributes, where we need to go out of order because we should talk about their stats first. These look familiar? How about now? And there's the main gimmick. Our take on Octoling will have the same base stats Inkling has, but their moveset will be so different that they still end up a distinct fighter. As mentioned, both species have identical abilities in Splatoon, so it makes a surprising amount of sense. This means that like Inkling, Octoling has fast horizontal movement with a run/swim animation that lets them dip under high attacks and be tricky to hit when they want to be. Above average fall speed but below average gravity makes them sorta kinda floaty in practice. Walk speed is good, which might come more in handy with this kit than it does Inklings. Here's where they start to diverge. With a different background comes different weapon preferences, resulting in Octoling having a very different fighting style. While they're still evasive and opportunistic, remnants of their Octarian military training make them favor more tactical combat. Their go-to weapons are better spacing tools and more capable of going toe-to-toe with enemies instead of relying on baits and punishes. They also have stronger stage control tools, making them better at claiming turf than Inkling is. This also changes most of the ratings I give every challenger. Octoling has better damage per hit than their squid counterpart, but worse combo prowess, being just okay at that. They don't rack up damage as quickly early on since they aren't as focused on showing off, and their combo routes aren't as flexible or creative, but their greater discipline gives them more stable damage output and much less situational knockout power, which is a big deal because the latter can be a real pain in the sea bass for Inkling players. Octoling's attacks also aren't as fast as Inklings, and are kinda mediocre speed-wise, but they're less risky to test the waters with. Bigger and more disjointed on average, they let Octoling players space their attacks more safely and outrange more enemies. Where Inkling's kit encourages using your instincts and feeling out what moves string into what, Octoling's moveset puts more emphasis on using your head. Whether that's good or bad is a matter of taste. So what does this new moveset look like? Well, first, we need to set the stage with a couple things. Inkling's moveset relies on the classic splatter shot for a lot of their attacks. To best contrast this, our Octoling moveset builds around a different weapon, the .96 Gal. The Splatoon 3 rendition of this weapon is featured prominently in the box art and promotional material, enough that it's low-key become associated with Octolings. It also has distinct stats from the splatter shot in the games, firing ink that travels further and deals more damage per shot, but with a slower fire rate, a wider shot spread, that is, worse accuracy, and greater ink consumption per shot. It's also bigger and harder to swing around than the splatter shot despite still being a middleweight weapon, so that'll factor in too. This moveset also has ink as a mechanic. It works exactly the same as it does with Inkling. Certain attacks can coat opponents in ink that make them take progressively more damage the more fully they're painted. But said attacks also expend ink to use, and if you run out, those attacks either get weaker or stop working entirely. You recover ink by pressing B while shielded, it evaporates off enemies over time, you know how this goes. What matters is the different ways Octoling uses it. So let's see how, beginning with their basic attacks. Octoling's jab combo starts like Inkling's, with a quick chop for the first hit. But from there it diverges. The second hit swaps the pivot kick for a right elbow. Then it goes into either a straight kick without the spin, or arming the .96 gal and firing a flurry of point-blank shots that ink anyone they hit. Compared to Inkling's counterpart, these shots are bigger and with more damage and hit stun, but are less rapid and cost more ink per hit. Octoling's forward tilt has them swing the .96 gal in a downward arc, using it as a blunt object. While it sounds similar to Inkling's forward tilt, this version has better range and slightly more damage since the weapon's bigger, but it's also more unwieldy as a melee weapon, so it's slower and swung in a less elegant arc closer to Roy and Crom's forward tilt in practice. Octoling's up tilt has them swing the .96 gal in an upward arc from front to back. Not as stylish as Inkling's backflip, but the disjoint makes it better at anti-airing, and it kills, splats, off the top much earlier. Animation's a bit rough, uses two hands for the swing, and they fall back on one foot at the end from the weapon's momentum. Then Octoling's down tilt has them plant the .96 gal into the ground vertically and use it as a makeshift fulcrum to perform a low spinning kick. Slower than its Inkling counterpart and only deals one hit, but it reaches further and with much more knockback. Starts to KO a ledge pretty quickly. And for a dash attack, Octoling does a tackle kinda like Inkling's, but with a few differences. Their version starts slower as they brace for the attack, their elbow sticks out more for better range, and they duck their head lower during the attack and land with both feet in one practiced motion for less end lag. Inkling's smash attacks pull out other weapons, so of course Octoling's do too, but not the same ones. Their forward smash uses one of Splatoon 3's new weapon types, taking out a Splatana wiper, charging it, and performing a powerful rising slash for heavy damage. It's a strong finisher with something extra. The slash creates a crescent-shaped ink beam that travels a dash length forward as a sour spot hit, so you'll still get some damage in ink even if your timing's off. Then their up smash has Octoling take out a tri-slosher, using it to fling ink in a spread formation above. Boasting a wide hitbox with considerable power, it's even faster than the main hit of Inkling's up smash. But its launcher is slower and more awkwardly placed, right on Octoling instead of in front of them, and the ink dissipates quickly on the way back down. And Octoling's down smash... Wait, what? They pull out a burst bomb sub-weapon and immediately throw it at their feet. True to the source material, this move hits in an area around Octoling's position, and it is fast to come out. But the damage and knockback are pretty weak for a smash attack, so this move's more for utility and maintaining advantage than splatting people. On to aerials. Let's start with a simple one. Octoling's neutral air is a quick split kick. Unlike Inkling's Nair, Octoling's version stays upright. While it's less combo friendly than Inkling's, it's slightly faster, and the lack of flip means the hitboxes are lower and better at protecting them or punishing out of shield. Less stylish on offense, but more practical for defense. So when Octoling jumps, they bring their free hand behind their back. Why? To pull an octobrush out of hammer space for most of their other aerials. Their forward air has them whip out the brush and swing it in a downward arc in one smooth motion. Unlike Inkling's forward air, this one's closer to a sword fighter aerial, a footsie's tool with range on par with Roy and Crom. Its horizontal knockback makes it good for edge guarding. Octoling's back air has them pull the octobrush out as they turn around and quickly wave it up and down. Deals 2 hits total, with greater forward reach than the forward air, but a smaller vertical arc. The lengthy animation makes it more situational than Inkling's infamous back air, but its knockback growth's high enough to not have issues getting knockouts. Then Octoling's up air has them grip the octobrush with both hands and perform a powerful swing above them. Goes from about the 2 o'clock position to 10:30 with Marth-like range and stronger knockback than Inkling's up air. Maybe on the slower side, but it's much better at getting knockouts without needing a percent specific confirm. And Octoling's down air doesn't use the octobrush at all, instead taking the .96 gal and slamming it straight down. It's similar to Inkling's down air, spike included, but it's bigger, stronger, and slower to come out. Save it for when the situation calls for it. Octoling's grab game starts out pretty familiar. Their grab animations have them reach forward with their free hand. These are functionally identical to Inkling's grabs, so their standing grab is kinda slow and not the greatest, but their dash and pivot grabs are much bigger and have better burst due to Octoling's mobility. Their pummel is unique though, bashing the opponent with a .96 gal instead of stomping on their feet. It's on the slow but strong side far as pummels go. But that's basic. Where's the interesting... Oh, there we go. Octoling's forward throw has them whip out a pair of splat dualies and pelt the opponent with 6 shots, a counterpart to Inkling's forward throw, focusing on applying ink first and foremost with hardly any knockback, though a little more than Inkling's. If you're out of ink, the dualies don't shoot anything and you're a sitting duck. Then Octoling's back throw has them turn around, shift into octopus form, and perform a leaping tackle based on one of Splatoon 3's new movement techniques. Even works as a kill throw eventually. Octoling's up throw uses the other new tech, turning into octopus form and springing upward. In practice, this is a combo throw just like Inkling has, leading into follow-ups up through 60 to 70%. Then their down throw could be the simple bounce Inkling has, but we can do better. Octoling performs a short hop in place and lands with a punch, imitating the splashdown special from Splatoon 2 and 3's story mode. It's not an actual splashdown, so there's no ink involved, but it does deal the most damage of Octoling's throws. Let's wrap this up with some taunts. Octoling's up taunt can be the same as Inkling's, with the female Octoling saying "Female," because we can't not include it. But for the other 2 taunts, we can pull from some of Splatoon 3's emotes. Their side taunt can have him spin around once and squat and try to look cool, and their down taunt can... do they realize that's gone out of style? Alright, Octoling's specials let them really show how fresh they can be. But how? Let's start with their neutral special. This one's predictable enough, because... yeah. Like how Inkling's neutral special uses their splatter shot for its intended purpose, Octoling does the same with the .96 gal. Here's where more of those different stats come in. Press B and Octoling opens fire with their weapon, shooting bullets of ink for as long as you hold the button down and have ink to use. Each shot travels a fairly long distance, over half the length of Final Destination, dealing damage and applying ink to any opponents they hit. But this move's different in other ways too. Its shots are less rapid, less accurate, and expend ink at a faster rate. However, the lower accuracy means it covers a wider area than the splatter shot can, and since you can still aim up and down, you have a lot of places you can hit. And each ink bullet deals hits done from further away than splatter shot shots do, up to about half the shot's max distance. Firing the .96 gal gives Octoling a way to poke at opponents and stick some ink onto them. It's a way to encourage them to deal with you more directly or play more carefully so they aren't left covered in ink and taking up to 1.5 times damage from everything. The greater range and larger shot deviation but slower fire rate makes this shooter less about quickly tagging someone to create momentum and more about controlling part of the stage for a bit and dealing semi-random chip damage to everyone there. You can also shoot at recovering opponents for a hit or two if you're not confident in your edge guards, though be careful. Like with Inkling, you can't move while firing, and you can run out of ink quickly if you're not careful. Okay, maybe that wasn't so unique, but this one is because Inkling's side special uses Splatoon 3's other new weapon type. Stringers are modified bows designed to shoot volleys of ink, and they've been featured pretty prominently in promo material. On use, Octoling pulls out a tri-stringer, the class's main weapon, turns it vertically, and starts to charge it. Hold B to charge for longer, and you can move slowly and jump once while doing so. Let go, and Octoling fires a spread shot of 3 ink arrows that fall over time like the Link's arrows, damaging and inking any opponents in the way while coating any ground they fly closely over, just like with Inkling's splat roller. But if you charge at least part way, the shots take the form of solid ink arrowheads that embed in any opponent or stage surface they impact. After a short delay of less than a second, the arrowheads detonate, creating medium-small ink explosions that deal an additional hit apiece and apply more ink. The exact trajectory also varies based on how long you charge. The longer you hold, the further the arrows fly and the more damage they deal, but the closer together their flight path is. The Tri-Stringer shoots ranged projectiles for long-distance pressure and unseating campy opponents, while taking parts of the stage to apply passive control via slowing the grounded movement of enemies who run across it. While the shots are good for both combat and utility, they don't really do both at the same time. High charges are for sniping, low charges for turfing. It's also not that great at outright zoning. Since it's telegraphed enough for opponents to see coming, the shots fly too fast to control space for long, and while you can move a little while charging, you can't adjust the angle or cancel out early. Up special is next. What can we use here? Well, it just makes sense. Super jumps have been around since Splatoon 1, and Octolings can use them too, just like Inklings can. This one works exactly like the Inkling version, the one special that stayed the same. After a bit of startup, you leap upward with the ability to angle it left or right to some extent, deals a weak hit to anyone in the way, and another hit as you land that can trip people up sometimes. Super Jump is a straightforward recovery move meant specifically for recovering and not combat. Its overall distance is still quite good, but since this moveset doesn't have the splat roller for horizontal movement, it does mean Octoling's recovery is more linear and more reliant on going low. They still have good enough air mobility that it's not a huge issue, but it does make them more predictable off stage. And it's, once again, the only special in the kit to not use any ink, so if you run out off stage, you're not deader than an Aerospray in a team fight. Okay, that's the last move directly lifted from Inkling's moveset, Promise, because while Octoling's down special is also a sub-weapon, it's a different one. Introduced in Splatoon 2, the Fizzy Bomb works a little differently than the other bomb-type subs. On use, Octoling pulls out a Fizzy Bomb and throws it. After a short delay, or if it hits something or someone, it blows up, damaging and inking anyone nearby. Wait, that's just the Splat Bomb, right? But if you hold B at the start, Octoling shakes the bomb like a can of soda, riling up the ink inside. Throw it then, and the bomb explodes more than once, up to a total of 3 times. And since it moves a little with each explosion, it threatens a larger area the more you shake it up. Fizzy Bomb is a, potentially, multi-hit projectile perfect for controlling part of the stage for a bit, as long as you're aware of the startup and ink cost required. Single explosion tosses work best in neutral situations to force opponents to move, just like in Splatoon, while charged tosses work best for area control or ledge pressure when you have the advantage. Compared to Inkling's Splat Bomb, it applies more ink on hit, but each individual explosion is smaller and it requires more ink to use, unlike in Splatoon where it's slightly less. The damage and knockback are roughly similar. Shaken up bombs are not multi-hit. Each explosion has equal power. Alright, let's end this in style with Octoling's Final Smash. Splatoon has plenty of specials that fit perfectly here, so we just need the right one. How about the Triple Ink Strike? Powered up by the Smash Ball, Octoling launches 3 ink missiles up and off screen, holding a matching set of targeting beacons in their free hand. For the next 12 seconds, they're free to move around normally, but pressing A or B has them toss one of the beacons forward like an item. Once a beacon lands on a surface, or sticks to an opponent, one of the missiles comes flying down in the blink of an eye, exploding with a high-damaging ink cyclone. Each individual missile is strong, but not as strong or as big as most Final Smashes. But you have 3 beacons to throw out, and you can have all of them active at once if you're fast enough. A more tactical Final Smash for someone so accustomed to fighting that way. This is what Octoling could be like in Smash, a race of ex-soldier cephalopods who escaped to the surface in search of a better life, and they've blended right in. Their old battle habits may die hard, but it gives them a distinct style that adds that much more flavor to the chaotic freshness of the Splatlands. With a different set of weapons than their 10-tentacled counterparts, Octoling focuses on a strong set of footsies tools that let them exchange blows, deal damage, and end stocks with greater relative safety. Their specials can lock down whole areas of the stage, controlling where opponents can go while setting up chances to gain momentum, all while maintaining the high mobility and tricky movement the original Inkling moveset benefits so much from. However, they're not as explosive as Inkling is. They're more reliant on building damage over time than pulling off stylish combos. Their attacks are on the slower side, vulnerable to getting outsped up close or punished if they don't connect. And their kit's higher overall ink consumption puts more caps on their pressure and forces them to take more breaks in the action, lest they run out and wind up dead in the water. This is a character I knew would be popular to speculate on. I fully expect that whenever the next Smash game gets announced, or the moment we hear rumors that it's happening, we'll see a lot of Octoling concepts surface much like the Octolings themselves. Hopefully this one stands out above the crowd. There were a few ideas I scrapped over time. Had one setup where the Splatana wiper was the side special, and the Tri-Stringer was a weird down smash where they jumped and fired a spread shot below them. Think the version I went with instead works better overall. I also looked into other potential final smashes. Trizuka was a runner-up, as was the Reef Slider since it's so straightforward to transfer over, but I got a feeling Inkling might claim that one if their moveset gets a touch-up next game. Been a while since I've covered someone who's outright likely to show up in the next Smash game. Hopefully the fact that Splatoon 3 is the first in the series I've actually played didn't hurt the overall design too much. I'm still green around the gills. Watched Let's Plays of the previous 2 games, but now I wanted to take the plunge and see what all the hype was about firsthand. Had to get my feet wet somehow. Okay, I promise that's the last aquatic pun. Special thanks to these people here for helping make this video happen. Thanks also to my patrons for your continued support. And now, it's time for my patrons to vote on which of these 3 characters gets to go next. Who will it be? So, until next time, give my regards to Big Man.